Hey guys, welcome to this quick take episode. We're so excited to have you here with us. In the past, these quick take episodes actually were only available to those who financially supported the show through Apple subscriptions and Patreon.
But due to popular demand, we have decided to shake up the perks for our supporters and will be releasing these quick takes on Saturdays to everyone, giving you all some extra free content that was previously unavailable to the public.
And these quick takes are a little more laid back, and they're hosted by just one of us. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this quick take episode.
Shazam!
Boom!
Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Paul, and I am back with another quick take episode for you this week. I thought that it would be fun to dive back into the world of mobile gaming because there are just so many games and so many options that we normally don't get to talk about on the show. And I wanted to talk about it's actually kind of a 2-for-1 because these two games are essentially the same. You can kind of pick either one and have a lot of fun, although I'll share a little bit about which one I like more. But I want to talk about Game Dev Story and Game Dev Tycoon. And at its core, both of these games are exactly the same. Game Dev Story is the one that came out first. I remember I initially bought it way back in the day on one of my old iPhones. And basically, it lets you run your own gaming studio where you get to design games, release them to the public. They get rated. Depending on how many copies sell, then you make more money, and then you can increase your staff and start to hire other people, and so on and so forth. And then not too terribly long after Game Dev Story came out, there was another game that a lot of people labeled just as a straight-up knockoff, which is Game Dev Tycoon. And it's basically very similar. If you see screenshots, you might even think that it's a ripoff or really exactly the same game. But it actually is a little bit bigger. It goes into a little bit more depth. On the whole, I think I ended up playing Game Dev Tycoon a little bit more. Although I can definitely recommend either one for all of our listeners out there. Both games are pretty cheap, although they are not free to play. I don't think you might be able to download some kind of lighter demo or a version that gives you a certain amount of game time. But both of these games are $5 mobile games. You can also buy Game Dev Tycoon through Steam for $10, but I would not do that. As fun as this game is, I think it plays just fine on mobile. You might as well save a few bucks and play it on that medium. But one of the really neat things is the progression over the course as you play. So basically, you start off as a one-man game studio. You get to give it a name. You're just working out of your garage. And basically, as you do things, you kind of earn these points that you can use to unlock new genres or to do different things. So you might start experimenting and maybe you release a game about aliens and it's an RPG on PC. And then after you release the game, you can run some research to see whether or not that performs well in the market. And the game will kind of tell you, okay, maybe this was a good match or it was a perfect match, or it's not an ideal match and the game doesn't do so well. And so it's kind of fun as you tinker with the different options. Like some of them are really obvious. If you want to put together like dungeon and RPG, clearly you know that's going to be a good performing combination, especially if you put it on something like PC, and those games tend to sell very well. If you want to, you can even title it Final Fantasy if you want as the name. And as you play the game more and more, you start to hire more and more staff, and you assign them different roles. And so you have some people that focus more on the graphical, artistic side of things, and so you put them in charge of the graphics. And then you have other people who are more technical, and you put them in charge of the engine and things of that nature. And over the course of the game, you can start to build bigger and better games. There's an option to attend a gaming conference every year, which kind of gives you a chance to market whatever game you're currently coming out with. And it also gives you options. Later, it gets pretty complex where you can actually assign two genres together. So you can actually have like an action RPG set with dragons, or trains or whatever it might be. And sometimes you can make some weird combinations and they actually do perform well, which is kind of funny. But the game also tries to kind of follow the real life timeline of games. So you start to see games like the Nintendo NES gets released, and because of copyright, they give it a different name, but it's clearly the NES, and that comes out, and then later you'll see things like the Sega Genesis, and they talk about how the Sega Genesis has a little bit more of a mature audience, and so maybe if you create a mature game, it might perform better on Sega than it would for Nintendo. So it's actually a lot of fun. It lets you kind of play the role of a gaming studio, kind of lets you put together some things that you really enjoy. I remember putting together things like robbery and adventure, and you can kind of, make games of that nature. And you get to move into bigger, better studios, train your staff so they get to increase their abilities in those different areas. And so it's a lot of fun. There's lots of progression along the way as far as unlocking bigger and better options for your engines. As time goes on, you start to be able to use things like branching storylines and 3D audio, and it even goes a little bit into the future where you can start to design 3D games and things of that nature. So anyway, that's definitely a big recommendation of mine. I have plugged in dozens, if not hundreds of hours into both of these. So feel free to check out Game Dev Story or Game Dev Tycoon. I know everyone kind of picks their own side. I like Tycoon just a little bit more, but they are both very fun to play. So hopefully that'll be a good hot tip for you, mobile gaming wise. And then I will be back with another Quick Take episode next week. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate all the support. Happy gaming.